Hello and welcome to Rise of Humanity. I'm your host, Chris Karamaya, and today I'm very pleased to be joined by my guest, Jenn Lederer. Jenn is a motivational speaker, leadership coach, and host and founder of the podcast Weekly Alignment. And Jenn has a uniquely direct and authentic approach to her work, making spirituality and wellness actionable and accessible to all. Jenn is also an esteemed and respected member of the Forbes Coaches Council, a contributor to the Huffington Post wellness section, and has recently taken the stage at Yale and Google headquarters to share her thoughts on conscious leadership. So, Jenn, it's great to have you on the show today. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me, Chris.
So, I would like to begin this interview by talking about an area that you seem to be somewhat of an expert in, and that is unicorns.
Yes.
So tell me what that's all about and what does it mean to you?
Okay, I would like to go on record to say that I was on the unicorn train way before unicorns became as hot as they are now. But I'm really excited that they are becoming such a part of everyone's culture. So what they represent to me and what I really mean when I say that you are a unicorn, I believe that we all are, is when we start to understand that the thing that we've been hiding away from the world, the thing that we think is going to separate us, is actually the thing that connects us. And that's like the horn of a unicorn, right? We all run around this world trying to act like we're white horses. Like, no, I don't have anything special about me. No, I'm not different at all. And we see all of these white horses running around. So when we start to tap into what makes us unique and what makes us different than others, when we show that, it actually is the thing that connects you to others, because other unicorns will recognize it and be like, yes, me too. And you will inspire the white horses in your world to then say, wait a minute, if she's a unicorn, maybe I am. And that's what I'm talking about in conscious leadership. It's not going and convincing somebody to do something. It's you first. You embody it. You show people that it's possible. And through that, you then invite them to get curious about what's possible for me.
That's amazing. So it's very much, I mean, still, I think a lot of people are cut off from it, but it's that idea that adversity and the challenges, they are what make you. And it's all about the perspective. That's what I kind of pick up on what you're saying. And if you view a challenge with a positive perspective, it completely transforms it. Is that kind of what you are getting across with the horn of the unicorn?
Yeah, it's your mindset of it, it's how you relate to it, but it's also the story that you think that thing, if somebody found out, right? If somebody found out your big dark secret, that would be the end of you. No one would want to work with you, people would judge you, and you would be isolated. That's the soul's biggest fear, is isolation. And the truth is, when you share it, that is the thing that creates more connection in your life than anything else.
Yeah. Awesome. So can you sort of begin to dig into your story now? Can you explain your journey within the context of this unicorn analogy? I mean, you're a unicorn now? Were you born a unicorn? And how did that go for you?
I was born a unicorn and then I forgot.
Yeah.
Right. That's what happens. We have experiences in life. One of the things that one of the cornerstones of my business is the concept that it's safe to shine. And I think that men and women experience this, especially women, in my opinion, is we learn how to play small in order to be liked, in order to stay safe. We have experiences in our life, especially in childhood, where you're running around like the unicorn that you are, and then you do something, and because you were shining so bright and because you were so unique, you experienced judgment and you experienced isolation. So in those moments, we're like, oh, maybe it's not safe to shine. Maybe I need to hide this part of myself. So slowly but surely, we start to put a veil between us and our unicorn horn. And honestly, we forget that it's there. It's not like we're a bunch of people running around trying to not be as powerful as we are. We're running around thinking we are as powerful as we are. Like, we have completely forgotten that we have all of this magic inside of us. And my personal story, I mean, one of the things that, I mean, for all intents and purposes, feels like it damn near ripped the unicorn horn off was when I was 12, I was sexually assaulted. And it was somebody that I knew. It was somebody that my friends knew. And nobody believed me. Nobody believed my story of it. And so in that moment, in that experience, I said, okay, well, you know what? It may not be safe for me to shine in that way, but I'm going to be the strongest white horse out there. I'm going to fight and I'm going to run. And okay, maybe I can't be all of who I am, right? That's what I learned in that moment. It's not safe to be all of who I am. So I'm going to edit myself and be the strongest version that I can inside of that edit. And I mean, it was over a decade before I really started to connect with what that really meant to me in my life, in my career. It affected how I showed up as a performer. I went to college for dance. That's what brought me to New York City to begin with. And hindsight, when I look back on how I was being in the world when I moved to New York, I was sabotaging auditions. I was not going to callbacks. I was blacklisting myself left and right because my pattern, my deepest belief was that it's not actually safe to shine. So when I talk to people about self-sabotaging, right? That concept of why are you getting in your own way? What I want people to know and to really hear is that everything you do is out of love. Everything you do for yourself is out of love, is out of you're really good at surviving. Humans have figured that part out, right? We can survive. And we sometimes pick up survival techniques that don't actually serve our highest good. So it was my kind of journey and experience of unlearning those survival techniques and learning, no, it is safe for me to shine. It is safe for me to step out on stage, which is now what my career is coming back to full circle. It's like, okay, I've done the work. I've connected back to my inner strength, my inner unicorn, if you will, and I'm ready to be seen for who I am in the world, in my work, in my personal life, in all of those areas. But if your listeners are in the midst of self-sabotaging and they're like, I know what I'm supposed to be doing and I just keep not doing it. The question that you first want to ask yourself is, how are these patterns actually serving me? Because there is a way, I guarantee, that those patterns have been what have kept you alive up until now. It's just that they no longer serve you in that way, and it's time to release them.
Absolutely. And so was your work in the entertainment industry, was that kind of the catalyst, the tipping point for you to, kind of embrace that unicorn awareness and finally kind of share and shine, your true self to the world? Was there kind of a moment or like a series of events that kind of triggered it? I mean, what was that process like?
So the entertainment industry, so I was a dancer when I moved to New York, and then I got the opportunity to run a talent management company. I ended up owning it and running it for 5 years. I was still very much hiding during all of that. I tell people that I am a master at hiding in plain sight. People thought that I was doing everything I wanted to do. And really what I was doing was I put myself in a position where I could help other people shine. I could help other people get on stage and get on camera and be seen, but I could chill in the background and kind of just be a support system and not really be seen. So when I decided and realized that it was time for me to leave managing and to allow myself the space to reconnect with my artist and my expression, that's where the veil started to kind of get thinner again. And I started to really get honest about how intricate, like I'm telling you, Chris, the way that we survive is so intricate sometimes, and we don't see it until we look back. I'm like, wow, I built a whole business, an entire business that was successful and that other people looked at like, you did it, you reached it, this is your end game. And the whole time I was like, not really that happy, and yet so artfully like adjacent to where I wanted to be. It was like so close I could touch it, so I could convince myself that it's where I was supposed to be, and I could have stayed comfy in that for a long time. But that awareness that I wasn't happy in that and that I wanted more is actually what made me start to explore all of these patterns and figure out what I really wanted to be doing.
Yeah, I can completely relate to that. And it's when, I mean, maybe it's easy for other people to see, but when you're so kind of close, it's your own consciousness. You can't always. It can take years to spot a pattern and break free from it. And yeah, I can definitely relate to that, because I was stuck in the pattern for years of always wanting to do more, and then with something more than just a job. And it took me years of leaving so many jobs and trying to do something I really wanted, and then I can't do this, and I go back and get another job. And I finally had that realization that I've been ready all along, and I've just been stepping back because of fear. And once I recognized that pattern, it was just like a light just switched on in my brain. I was like, oh yeah.
That's right. That's right. Life. And I love that you said I was ready all along. I tell my clients, if you feel ready, you waited too long. Yeah. Because that's the truth, Chris. We are ready all along. It's just all of those stories and ways that our ego convinces us that we're not. If you feel ready, you have waited way too long. If you start before you feel like you're ready, that's probably the exact time that you should be starting.
Absolutely. So what does alignment mean to you? How do you know, obviously you're in a completely new place than you were many years ago. How would people know if they're aligned, and are you now more aligned than you ever have been in your life?
Yes, I am more aligned now than I ever have been, partly because of the inner work that I've done and really knowing who I am and being willing to admit the things that make me happy, the things that don't make me happy, right? My ego didn't love the fact that I had to walk away from the stage for a while and that I needed to like take some time away from that. That was really scary. But the way that you can discern if you are aligned or out of alignment is asking yourself one question. Does this feel light or does this feel heavy? If it feels heavy, that means that there's a lie in there somewhere. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's wrong. It just means that there's a lie. There's an untruth in there. So for example, if you were considering working with a coach, right? And on one hand, every time you think about working with that person, you get excited and it feels really light and you're like, oh my God, this is like everything that I need. But then on the other hand, you look at the finances and things are really tight and it feels like this is going to be too much. It's going to stretch me too far out. Now, logistically, and logically, you might be able to look at that and be like, well, look at my bank account. Yes, absolutely. That's true. But if you feel into it and it feels heavy, and it's just like, oh, the finances again, it feels heavy. That's the lie. That's the lie. And if you buy into that lie, if you buy into that heaviness, you are reinforcing that lie and making it a truth. So that's my process of staying in alignment. I use that for deciding what I want to eat, to decide if I want to go out that night or that weekend, to decide which direction I'm going to bring my business. It's as simple as that. Does this feel light or does this feel heavy? And you always follow the light.
Yeah, I love that. That's definitely, yeah, something that in those moments when it's, scary and like, oh, should I make this decision? It can be quite difficult to connect to that lightness. But I've found that when you do and you make decisions from that place, it always turns out for the better. And when you make decisions from that heaviness and from fear, a few months later, you're always like, oh, I wish I had done this now.
That's right, because
missed
we
out.
will attract what we step into, right? So if you step
Yeah.
into heaviness, you're going to get more heaviness.
Absolutely. And just going back to the entertainment industry, would you say that you could still have I mean, obviously you're doing something different now, but do you think you could have a aligned career in that, or do you think that industry as a whole is, lacking in authenticity? And because obviously, I mean, we hear a lot about Hollywood and, and that kind of stuff, it's a lot of insecurity there as well. I mean, do you think it'd be possible for you to have a career aligned in that industry?
100%.
Yeah.
100%. But here's what I need to commit to is doing it on my terms.
Right.
So if I step into the entertainment industry and allow them to contort me into what they want from me, then no, that's not going to be aligned and I will not survive. But the world that we live in now, there is so much opportunity for an artist to create their own work in their own way, on their own terms. And we have so much control over building our own following, like way more than we ever have before. So it's really a commitment to, I'm going to go back into the entertainment business and entertain people the way that I want to. Is that going to turn into a deal for a TV show? I have no idea. And I don't even consider that to be the end all be all anymore. To me, a TV show feels like a bunch of red tape, a bunch of meetings with people in suits telling me that I can't do things. So I get excited working with artists, especially now, because honestly, there aren't very many gatekeepers left. The world has changed where you don't necessarily need a manager or an agent or a booking agent to build a following and to sell a book or to sell an album or to sell a program. There's ways for you to do that on your own. And even 10 years ago, when I first moved to New York City, that was not the case. There were still way more gatekeepers in place. That was one of the reasons that I realized I wasn't going to be a talent manager the rest of my life, because they're going extinct. There's less of a need for managers at this point. So yes, I see myself going back into the entertainment industry, but completely differently and on my own terms.
Yeah. Yeah, I can completely relate to that because I'm a musician as well. And I know I'm not, intending to, I might record an album one day on my terms again, but I'm not intending to get into the industry. But I definitely now would approach it in a completely different way because I know I could be completely self-sufficient. I could sell my music, I could record it, myself. I wouldn't need to be reliant on a record label because I grew up thinking, that $1 million record label, that's it. But now I can see how restricting that is, and it's not the way I would go at all anymore. You don't need it, and I think it's, as you said, it's impacting so many different areas, and I think it's a reflection of the consciousness of humanity is changing, that people are able to, do these things on their own and just not, step into their power. And I can release an album on my own now. And I think I don't know if you've seen her talk much, but Lady Gaga has changed her views so much. She's basically just speaking out against the whole industry, from what I've heard.
Yep. Yeah, she's somebody that also is very awake and aware of the machine and aware of her part of being in that machine, right? And then actively working her way out of it. And, watching her documentary, it was kind of interesting how, from a coaching point of view, if I were talking to her, I would be so interested in knowing if she is like she kind of felt angry at her past self. Like she's so against who she was. And from a coaching perspective, I'm like, well, let's bring that part of you in. Let's fully accept all that you were, because that part of you still exists, and we can use her to fuel what is coming through you now. So you can be for something without having to be against something. And I see that in a lot of transformation with my clients. They're like, I just don't want to be who I was, in those situations anymore. I'm like, okay, well, we're not fighting against your past self. We're fighting for your future self. And that requires all of you to be on board, like all of your versions of who you are to be on board. Because if you start fighting a part of yourself, listen, that's a losing battle. So
Yeah.
it's really about like integrating all of who you are and knowing what you're fighting for and not being against any part of yourself.
Yeah, I love that. And it's funny you say that, because I've been learning from this energy healer and spiritual teacher recently, and he connects and communicates with his guides, and they, like, for his growth, and they gave him a when he was kind of first getting on this journey, they gave him a task to love yourself. So he spent a few weeks learning to love himself, and he was like, oh yeah, I think I'm getting the hang of this now. And then he checked back in with his guides, and then they said, now go back and love who you were. And he's like, oh, that's
Right.
different.
Right.
That's a challenge. So that's
Exactly.
it's kind of just reintegrating your whole soul, really, and becoming complete, which is a challenge, absolutely, but that's what
Yeah.
it's about. Yeah. Awesome. So could you just talk now a bit more on the coaching work that you're doing? So I've seen you've got a couple of different programs available on your website. And so what's the core running through all of it? I mean, is it getting people to embrace that unicorn? Is that kind of the ultimate goal through your coaching work?
Yeah. I tell my clients it's not what you do, it's how you do it.
Okay.
And we can't really define how you do anything until I know who you are and you know who you are and you're willing to show up in that version of yourself. So, one of my most popular programs right now is called 90 Days to Shine Online. And it's a 90-day program that brings people through everything it takes to show up online and have an online presence in a way that is not annoying, in a way that does not overwhelm people and make them say, oh God, Jen's live again. You know what I mean? Like really like having people excited to hear from you, but basing it off of, I walk people through creating like 3 main talking points that become your filters for everything. And this is how I walk people through creating their on-stage presence as well. No matter who you're talking to, no matter what room you are inside of, if you really know who you are and what your message is, there's probably 3 or 4 main talking points that you can always bring it back to. Like, I don't care what kind of conversation I'm having, I can always bring it back to it's safe to shine. It's not what you do, it's how you do it. And you can laugh your way to a breakthrough. Like, those are my 3 tenets that I believe wholeheartedly, that I have lived, that I embody. And so every single piece of content that I create has to be connected to one of those 3 talking points. Otherwise, it does not get created. And that's how I've created my online presence, my programs, and that's how I help my clients create their work as well. So you don't feel like you're all over the place, because there's a lot of, so I'm talking about learning how to shine. Okay, well, there's a million different ways that I could take that. So for my audience to not get confused and to not be like, Jenn is all over the place with her message, I have to be able to bring it back to the same 1, 2, or 3 places every time so that my audience isn't confused, because a confused mind says no.
Yeah, that's extremely powerful. So, yeah, if you can creating all of your content and your work from that, it creates really good congruency, I suppose, throughout the whole work. Yeah.
Yeah, and one of the acting coaches that I've worked with and my actors worked with, she always says that boundaries are the springboard for creativity. So, if you are someone who has a really big mission, sometimes if it's too big and you have too many ways and roads to go, it leads to paralyzation because there's just too many options. But if I say to you, okay, let's take that mission and put you just down that road, you can come up with 50 topics just for that road because I've made you focus. I've said, forget about everything else. We're going to go down this road and brainstorm this specific thing. And it's incredible what people come up with when I put boundaries on them. And they think it's going to be the opposite. But boundaries and clear direction really turn up your creativity.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, with the people that you work with, your clients, what would you say is probably the most common thing that comes up that keeps people stuck, that you have to kind of coach them away from, and what keeps people like stuck, in their own way?
I'm a fraud, right? People are going to find out that I actually have no idea what I'm talking about. Everything I want to say has already been said. And some version of I'm just not ready. Right? I just need a couple more months. I just need one more training. I just need one more certification, like whatever it might be before I get started. And the one of the best teachers in life is action. Right? Start taking action and you're going to get clarity 100 times faster than if you sit and journal for 3 months, right? Journaling is powerful. I love my morning pages, but action has taught me so much more than sitting and thinking and trying to make it perfect ever has. And for the people who say, everything I have to say has already been said a million times, I will say, not the way that you're going to say it. Because again, it's not what you do, it's how you do it. So, I mean, look at any industry where you have people that you like. I love comedians, right? And there's how many comedians? There's new, comedy specials coming out on Netflix every day at this point. Like, there's no shortage of comedians, but I don't love all comedians. Right? I don't love everybody's aspect of comedy. I don't love everybody's approach. I like comedy. I like comics, but I don't like all of them. And somebody like Ellen DeGeneres, for example, is very different than somebody like Joe Rogan. Right? But I love what both of them bring to the table, not just because they're comics, but because of who they are inside of that work. So if you're convinced that what you have to say has already been said, you are tricking yourself into believing that someone else has done it the way that you're going to. And that's just impossible because there's only one you.
Yeah, unique
That's
soul
right.
expression.
Unicorns.
Yeah.
Unicorns.
Nice. So what
And with
kind?
sorry,
Go ahead.
with the fraud thing, because that's like a really common, like, I'm a fraud, people are gonna find me out, and that's connected to not being ready. They use that fraud excuse to be like, no, I need more time. I have watched many interviews of people that are well beyond their 10,000 hours of mastery, right? Like, they've been doing the thing forever, and they still feel like people are going to find them out. They still have that experience. So in that way, there's some of these challenges that are just never going to go away. You can't wait for the fear of being found out to go away, because that actually, from what I can tell, never fully goes away. We just get better at being with it, and we just get better at realizing, like, that's a lie, that's heavy, I'm gonna let that be there, like, hey girl, nice to see you again, but I'm gonna keep going. So
Yeah, I think it's learning to deal with it, and just for me, it's just like breathing through it and just understanding that it's just there to help me grow, and I'm not gonna back
That's
down
right.
from it. So yeah, one of the things that comes up for me when you say that is, the film composer Hans Zimmer.
Mm-hmm.
He apparently, I watched an interview with him, and he's like incredible. His career is amazing. He's done so many big films, but he said that every time he gets a new project, he has like a massive panic, like, "Oh my god, how am I going to do this? How am I going to write this music for this film?" And it's like, you've done it like 100 times, like incredibly well, and it's successful. Yet every time he gets a new project, he's like, "Oh my god, how am I going to do this?"
Right. And then when you reach that point, there's also the pressure of how do I keep delivering? How can I over deliver from the last time? Like once you win an Academy Award of an actor, what do you do then? How do you find your value? How do you trust and know that you may not ever be on that stage again accepting that award, and yet it's your job to keep showing up? So, as they say, new level, new devil, right? There's always an obstacle for you to face. It doesn't get easier. You get better.
And you just got to just jump in. Yeah, it's awesome. So, what's your secret, if you have one, to positioning yourself as an expert in your industry? Because I mean, from looking at your work and your website, I find that you have a really kind of clear and strong presence, and you're landing all these great speaking engagements. I mean, so obviously you are very well respected. What's the process of getting to that point, and what mindset is required?
Okay, so the process is clarity. Having clarity around what it is you're here to say and how you want to say it. And when it comes to positioning yourself as an expert, consistency is one of the most powerful things. When people see you showing up and showing up and showing up, and sometimes it's better than others, right? Some podcast episodes that I put out are just like knocking it out of the park, and other episodes I'm like, well, I showed up, like
Yeah.
there's a way that consistency is one of the most powerful things for your audience to have, because the more that they see you, the more that they're going to trust you because they know you. And people aren't really interested in learning from an expert. They want to learn from someone that they trust. So I don't even see myself as an expert. I see myself as a contributor. I see myself as a contributor to the bigger conversation, to the conversation that I'm not the only one having, and I don't need to be the only one having it, and I don't need to be the best one having it. I just want to give myself permission to join the conversation. And I think that's a big, when we talk about the mindset, taking the pressure off of yourself. Like, don't set out to be the expert. Set out to be a contributor. Set out to give yourself permission to say something, and then say it over and over and over again, because the more you talk about it, Chris, I've been talking like nonstop since I was 18. Like I've been doing speaking events forever on all kinds of different things. But the more that I speak, the more clear that I get. Every time I'm done with a speaking event, I'm like, okay, I just gained even more clarity. So that mindset is about permission. It's about not waiting for an invitation, not waiting for someone to bestow upon you the label of expert, and really just showing up and offering what you have to offer right now and building off of that.
Awesome. So, and you mentioned about trust there, and obviously building trust with your clients is obviously very, very important. It's very important to build that relationship. But I'm curious, what's your mindset to approaching like a new client, or just when you've got someone that's really kind of struggling, they need a lot of help, because you've got this very kind of assertive, no BS approach, but then you got kind of a warmness as well. Is that all rolled into one, or do you have to kind of put on different hats to kind of bring the best out of people?
It's pretty much rolled into one. I get that feedback a lot from my clients, that's one of their favorite things about me, that I am no BS. I will give it to them straight, but I do it in a really loving way, because I don't believe that I have to break you down to build you up. I also don't believe that anyone's broken. We just have a lot of misunderstandings going on. So a lot of the clients that are attracted to working with me are type A. They like to see results and they like a straight line. Like, don't make me, navel gaze for months. Just tell me what's going on so we can move through this. But I never want to do it from a place of you're wrong and we need to fix this so you can be right. It's a matter of, I'm going to give it to you straight so that we can be aware of what's happening, and then we can love on that part of yourself and we can invite that part of you to grow instead of shaming that part of you to go hide, which is a totally different experience. And that's where we really start to cultivate the unicorn experience of, no matter where you are, Chris, no matter how many quote broken parts of you think you have, right now, today, you're enough. Right now, you are valuable. So enough with trying to think that I have to fix this, this, and this so that I can do that. It's like, nope, let's just do that from right here. And that requires a little bit of a push and a little bit of toughness, but it also requires a lot of love, because that part of you that is scared and is convinced that it's broken, I've got to be willing to hold a really gentle space for that part of you. Because that's the part of you that I want trust from. I want the darkest part of yourself, the most, broken part of yourself, to feel my energy and feel, oh my God, it's safe. She sees me and it's safe and she's not shaming me. And it's like, when we can start to have that experience, that's when all of you begins to be willing to show up.
Wonderful. Yeah. So how would you say that embracing, stepping into kind of your unicorn, how did that transform your coaching? Have you always been able to connect with people in that way, even when you're back in doing the talent management stuff, or has that kind of taken it to an all new level for you?
I think that I was always doing this. I just wasn't aware that I was doing it.
Okay.
Even when I was a kid, I was doing it. I've always been an empath. I've always been able to feel other people's energy. The difference now is I know what I'm doing. Like, I'm aware that, okay, this is what's going on. I'm aware that I can tap into somebody's energy when I need to or want to. And then I can also disconnect from it when I need to or want to, like on the subways of New York City, when I don't want to connect to everybody's energy around me, right? So it's just mastering yourself has helped me tremendously in my own business, in the consistency, in helping people get results, and also in taking care of myself and not overstretching and needing to be there all the time for everybody. Learning for myself, it's okay to disconnect. It's okay to shut down. It's okay to not always be available.
Yeah, awesome. I like that. So I've noticed that you use this phrase spiritual renegade in your copy. Could you just talk about what that means to you?
So the spiritual renegade to me is just my own version of spirituality where, it's interesting. I don't know if I want to be fully awake. Like, there's a part of me that really loves the full spectrum of what it means to be human. And that includes darkness. That includes, like, for example, I was sober for 18 months. I went no alcohol for 18 months because I needed to just like redefine that relationship. And when I made that decision, I didn't know if I was ever going to drink again. And I was in Paris in June and I was like, you know what? I'm going to have a glass of red. I'm just going to have a glass of red wine because, God damn it, I'm in Paris and I'm going to do it. And there was this huge like layer of guilt and fear that came down, like, but wait, you've done all this work and now you're so much more awakened and like closer to your spiritual self and yada yada. And I'm like, you know what? Everything is spiritual. Absolutely everything. I can make brushing my teeth spiritual if I wanted to. I can make the chair that I'm sitting on spiritual. So it's really a matter of your relationship to what you're doing. I now have a totally different relationship with alcohol. I don't use it to numb, and I don't even use it to get like completely drunk anymore. After 2 glasses, like, I'm good. Plus, I'm in my 30s now, so hangovers are just on a whole nother level. So, that's my interpretation of a spiritual renegade, is really giving yourself permission to define it as whatever you want it to be. If you want to be fully awake and like a clean channel with no GMOs and no poison and like all that, go for it. More power to you. I just don't know that that's what I'm looking for. And that's okay. That doesn't make me any less spiritual than any guru or monk sitting on a mountaintop right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I think, if you look at it in the right way, I mean, you mentioned brushing your teeth or just sitting on a chair, everything has a higher purpose, even if it is alcohol. And I don't think the answer is to condemn things or condemn groups or condemn people or certain things. Everything has its place in ascension, I think. So completely relate to what you're saying there. So what, bit of a deep question, but you can answer it as much detail as you want, but what do you make of the human experience as a whole? What do you feel about that life's really about and what we're here to do?
Oh my God. Okay. Let me try and give you the most condensed version that I can of this answer. I believe that our souls choose to come here. I believe that we choose our parents. And I believe that we sign up for the challenges before we come. We don't necessarily know the specifics of the challenge, but our soul comes to this earth with the agreement to grow. And so, like what you were saying, everything has a purpose. If something triggers you, if you feel resistance towards something, there's a good chance that that something is put right in front of you for that exact reason, because resistance and pain is one of the strongest catalysts for change and for growth. So when I meet people that are triggering, which, being an American right now, with everything that's going on in our political system, everything that's going on in the world in general, there's a lot of ways for us to seek out separation and seek out all the ways that you're different from me and I'm right and you're wrong and all of this shit. And what I believe is that not only are we here to grow, we're here to be reminded that we're all one. We're all connected. So I don't necessarily have to agree with you, but I do want to have the awareness that you are me. And so I can disagree with you and be in a totally different place than you without hating you. And bringing it back to what we were talking about before, I am here to be for something, not against something or anyone. And my human experience, what I work to do every day is what am I for? What am I working towards? What am I moving towards? And anything that might be outside of that simply is out of alignment. It's not wrong. It's not right. It's just not for me right now. And that's it.
That's awesome. I love that answer. That's completely in alignment with everything that you said. And I've never asked anyone that question on the podcast before, but that was like the exact answer that I was kind of hoping you would say. So thank you for sharing that. So there's a question I like to ask all my guests in my interviews, and that is, what would be your best advice on how people can contribute to the rise of humanity?
Okay. In 2 words, show up. Okay. Show up right now, not after a retreat, not after you fix something really quick, not after you get more clarity. Just show up right now in the best way you know how, because whatever light you have to shine is not only important, it's a non-negotiable for the world to rise. We need every beam of light that came here for a reason.
Love it. Thank you for sharing that. So, what does the future hold for Jenn Lederer then? Where do you see yourself going? Are you just going bigger with what you're doing now, or what? Have you got any plans, or are you just taking it as it comes?
Oh, all the plans. I have all the plans. And then I also know that my plans usually mean nothing in the bigger scheme of things because I'm constantly blown away. But yeah, I'm in the process of, like I said, I love comedy. So I'm in the process of creating a motivational stand-up set that I'm looking to film and then pitch to a couple platforms. And my show, Weekly Alignment, I am looking forward to growing that in a lot of cool ways and having people come into my space for in-person interviews because, I believe when it comes to laughter and when it comes to laughing at the darkness, when there's intimacy, that's easier, right? When I'm in the same room as somebody, that conversation gets a lot easier where all of a sudden they're willing to laugh at some of the dark comedy in their life in a way that maybe they wouldn't be in a different kind of setting. So I'm really interested in exploring the power of dark comedy.
That's awesome. It sounds great. And I absolutely wish you all the best of luck with that. So where can we find out more about you?
So everything that you'd ever want to know about me plus some is on jennlederer.com. That's where you can find all of my social media buttons. You can find my show Weekly Alignment on there. You can sign up for my newsletter. All the things are on jennlederer.com.
Awesome. So it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show today. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story and your knowledge and talking about your work. So just thank you very much.
Thanks, Chris.
Awesome. So that is all for today, guys. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Rise of Humanity and have gotten some great takeaways from Jenn's story and her work. And be sure to check her out on the web, jennlederer.com, and I'll stick that in the show notes. So thank you so much for listening. I will catch you all next time. Take care. Bye-bye.